I'm a weak chess player, but it's a great thrill that I know in the audience are some people who were the chess heroes of my youth. I did try very hard to emulate the great international master Mike Basman. I tried just the same openings with much less success than Mr. Basman himself, but a great thrill to be here today. What I'd like to do in this session, colleagues, is just share with you a couple of very brief aims. Clicker's not quite registering. Thank you. Just those two. A very brief introduction to mindset theory. My background as a psychologist in education is in pedagogy, and in particular the notion of motivation and how do we motivate young people to engage in learning experiences. And for the past 20 years I've been working particularly in the field of mindset theory, and I'd like to provide just a few very, very brief offerings in the field of mindset, and particularly to relate that to chess development. Carol Dweck is the originator of mindset theory. She has for the past decade been professor of psychology at Stanford University, though her early work was done at other American Ivy League universities. I've had the great privilege of working with her since 2010 on various tours in the UK and Europe. And her work is, I think, just hugely relevant to us as chess players and indeed as chess coaches. What has she said? Well, one of her brief summaries of her work is simply this: that when you have a look at successful people in all fields of human achievement, what seems to characterize them is their engagement in the tough processes of learning, seeking out obstacles, really pursuing challenges, avoiding easy, quick wins because they don't see those as learning opportunities. And it does seem that though most of us would be if you like, relatively resistant in some areas to challenges, those who stick with them seem ultimately to rise to the top. Roughly 40% of us hold what she calls a fixed mindset.
Barry, would you better step back about
I will.
4 foot? That'd be terrific.
Thank you. I will try a neighbouring suburb of London, but is that any better? Okay, thank you. What she's found is that roughly 40% of us hold what she calls a fixed mindset. She used to call it an entity theory of intelligence. But if I believe that something like chess ability is a fixed trait, then what will follow from that is my priority to look smart. And when I'm playing chess, look like a good chess player. Understood if I believe that chess ability is fixed on the grounds that I haven't got enough of it. If you contrast that with a roughly similar proportion of young people who believe that they can get better, truly believe that it's not something which has got some genetic cap or potential on it, then they will want to. If they're interested in the game and they want to develop, they will push themselves by engaging in truly tough challenges. They'll have no interest in those quick, easy wins, lower graded opponents. There's no new learning there. So what they'll be doing is they'll be presenting themselves as challenge lovers who don't mind losing a few games if in the process they're engaging in learning. I had an opportunity coming back into chess after a 30-year break about a year ago, my first tournament back up in the northwest of England. And in round 1, playing in the open section, still on a pretty much a 20-year-old rating, I met somebody graded about 30 points below me. He's a 13-year-old player. And I thought this was going to be a quick and easy win. I mean, in terms of grade differential, I should have beaten him within 25 moves. I lost in 19. And after I'd stopped crying and I'd finished congratulating him through the haze of tears, I asked him why he was playing in that section, because clearly he was undergraded. And if he played in the section below, he, to my mind, would have stood a very good chance of winning first prize and a fair bit of money. And he looked at me kind of quizzically and he simply said, I might have won money, but I wouldn't have learned anything, would I? I need to play stronger opponents in order to improve, at which point I apologised again for not giving him a better game. But I really admire the mentality of that young man. Tremendous growth mindset. What he was demonstrating was, I need to be developing as a player. I'm not simply around presenting myself as an existing strong player. Carol is very clear that we see chess as a continuum, not as a binary opposite. So it's not that I have a fixed mindset in chess or any other field for all time, it's my current position, my current belief. And if I experience evidence or experiences which allow me to shift that belief, I can develop a growth mindset. But we can be positioned at various points on that mindset continuum. So this is the fixed mindset player. All I want to do when I play chess is show how smart I am, how good I am at the game. And it can feed a kind of a rampant competitive edge, which, when we take that into consideration as chess coaches, should have a few little alarm bells going. Nothing wrong with competition, but if it's competition at the expense of learning, it becomes a very different proposition. The option, of course, for the growth mindset play, if you can just move that on, please, John, is for me to learn and to improve. It's a very simple distinction, but in my experience, many of the most insightful and useful things in life do tend to be these very simple distinctions. That simply the belief that I hold has a considerable impact on my engagement as a learner. For Garry Kasparov, former champion, the observation he made, if we can just move that on, please, John, very similar to the observation made by a former Formula One racing driver. If everything feels under control, I'm not going fast enough. Pushing myself to the limits of my current level of performance. Within the work we do in schools, we have little questionnaires adapted for the developmental age of the young people with whom we're working, who can give us something of a sense of what mindset they hold. And you can see here if a child kind of acknowledges that this is like me, easy work is just showing how clever I am, that would be feeding ultimately into a score of a fixed mindset. The child who says this is not like me doesn't. In fact, this is an early version of the questionnaire that we use. The current version has 3 different coloured ticks, because we discovered there's a significant proportion of young people who hate putting a cross around a cross on principle. They just won't do it. So we were getting slightly skewed responses. Just a couple more if we could. If I work hard, I can grow my brain is clearly a growth mindset view being communicated. And another one, some people are clever, some people aren't, and we can't do much about that. The child who says, that's like me, of course, is acknowledging something of a fixed mindset. And there might be one more. Even if I don't understand, I just want to get the right answers. It's surprising how applicable this is to young people of all ages. I had a teacher of year 10 class who said that the ablest girl in her class that morning had said to her, Miss, I've given up trying to understand my GCSE work. I just want to do well at it now. It's a terrifying kind of insight. It's all around that, if you like, the quest for performativity rather than the engagement in the process of learning. Next, please, John. That little kid having come last in his first high-stakes wrestling competition, I think the face reveals the mindset. And that face is simply saying, I feel humiliated. The irony is we can often apply extrinsic motivators like trophies and believe that kids have, if you like, real value for those. No, they don't. It all depends on the value that they choose to give. Does this reflect a memory of positive learning? Well, for him it's not. With that face, what he's simply communicating is I feel stupid. With a different mindset, if we can just have the text for this slide, the most important thing in life is not the triumph, it is the struggle. The essential thing is not to have conquered, but to have fought well. The person who gave us the Summer Olympics, and arguably the most demanding discipline in the Summer Olympics. Back and practice that grip on my little sister for the next 3 weeks, so that in the next competition I can try that out in Mortal Kombat. And the boy who came first, that we can't even see on the raised dais over there, in terms of learning, he came last, because we could teach him nothing. He could beat us all. So if the boy who came first had a growth mindset, he would never enter that competition again. He'd go on to the next regional level, to face stiffer opposition, to find people who could teach him new skills and provide the opposition to move that on. So with that kind of mindset, that boy would probably be beaming, knowing that having come last, he could have learned more than anyone else. And please do note, what we're not suggesting is that having a growth mindset means you feel good about coming last. It simply means you feel that you're in a position as a learner to make new gains and to find new ways of developing your existing skills. Next slide, if we could. Here we see it in school, little Calvin on the left. You're doing homework? Well, I wasn't sure I understood this chapter, so I reviewed my notes from the last chapter. I'm rereading this. You do all that work? Well, now I understand it. I used to think you were clever. If little Calvin with his fixed mindset keeps it, and his little friend with her growth mindset keeps it, she's going to whop his bottom academically as the years roll by. She's a learner, and he's simply a performer. And what we know about performers is that they plateau at some point. If you've ever worked with a young chess player, brilliantly talented, but who's given up at a point that somebody who he expected to beat him, that's probably a child we've seen with a fixed mindset, who thought that they've reached their level, they've plateaued, and they've got out of the kitchen. I think probably every one of us, if we are chess players ourselves, remember individuals, it may have been us ourselves, I think it probably was in my case, probably gave up effectively at the point that you think you've reached your plateau. And it's not just chess or achievement. This is a fairly recent observation made by somebody who clearly is revealing a fixed mindset. If we can have the actual author of that, it is our president-elect. When his opponent, Hillary Clinton, was in lockdown preparing for the presidential debates, he was famously swanning around opening up new hotels. And when asked, "Why aren't you preparing, Donald?" Well, that's the answer. You've either got it or you haven't. And I think any objective arbiter of the debates would have probably concluded that Hillary had the edge in the mastery of policy detail. But if there's one silver lining from my perspective as a psychologist, I'm going to have 4 years of brilliant mindset material in the years to come. So I kind of hang on to small mercies in relation to that terrible result. Next slide, very small mercies indeed. So folk, I will just kind of share with you a few of the long-term consequences. It's not just an interesting psychological feature that some of us hold fixed and some of us hold growth mindsets. If I keep a fixed mindset, some of those things will result. I will overgeneralize. I will have one bad tournament experience and I will overgeneralize and assume I've kind of reached my plateau, it's time to get out and live off my past glories. I'm seen as a, if you like, a thick overachiever. And within a fixed mindset, unfortunately, that's the tragic label many of us take on board. As parents, we can be promoting the same kind of messages. Son, I was over 40 before I was sure I was a failure. What we're communicating in the hidden curriculum to that young man, of course, is, at some point you're going to reach your peak, you're going to reach your level, and in my case it was at 40. There's clearly nothing there of developmental growth for that individual. And I'll finish, colleagues, with some wonderful growth mindsets. This happens to be the Cumbrian junior chess team. I don't have much direct contact with them, but I do occasionally have contact with their coach. I hope no one here is from Cumbria, but I would probably identify them as arguably the weakest junior chess county in the United Kingdom. And the reason is no surprise, it's a very geographically thinly populated county. We don't have many training opportunities for them. They're largely lone wolves, ploughing their own furrow. So when they're coming to competition with highly trained junior outfits, they tend to be well beaten, including from a fairly close by county like Northumberland, which has great training opportunities for some of their young people. And they met them some time ago in a county competition, and this was the email that the Cumbrian coach sent to the organizer of that competition, called the Pennine Cup. If we can just see the text. Thanks for organising the Cup this year. I think we quickly realised we were rather heavily outrated, but most of the team found the defeat, which was 18.5, 1.5, fairly convincing in any sense, rather motivational. They said things like, I want to play as well as them. And these guys are my chess heroes. Taking beatings of that nature and seeing that as a source of inspiration. What we see there is growth mindset writ large. Thank you for your time. I shall resign gracefully and look forward to meeting you.